After almost a year of waiting, after playing Red Colony 1 and Red Colony 2, the release of Red Colony 3 is here. The past entries in this franchise have been some basic and fun survival horror games. One of the benefits of sequels within a franchise is to be able to work and improve upon previous entries, but I wonder, will the third entry of Red Colony be able to perfect and elaborate on the foundation that the previous games established? Hi everyone, my name is Jeremy and this is my non-spoiler review for Red Colony 3 for the Nintendo Switch. Thanks to Runic Codes for the review code. Red Colony 3 follows the story of Mina, an android from Titan who managed to complete her mission of acquiring the dino DNA that her queen had been looking for. Having completed her mission, Mina returns to Titan hoping to receive her reward, to be turned. However, things don't go as she expects. Titan has fallen into chaos and the queen is dead. And the wanted poster alludes that it was Mina herself who killed the queen. Obviously, things are not what they seem. You will unravel the mystery of what is happening as you play along through the game. The game's story is presented and elaborated in a variety of ways. The game gives you a brief story exposition during the opening moments, and you find out more about the story with comments that the main character does regarding her surroundings during different points of the game, through character dialogue and exposition, and you can get additional story bits by finding magazines that expand on what's happening on Titan and that you can access from the main menu of the game. The story of Red Colony 3 has a promising setting and premise, but ultimately ends up being a mixed bag. On the one side, the story and dialogue are cheesy and resemble a soap opera, and the way the mystery unravels is slow and boring at times. However, by the end of the game, there are a lot of twists and turns that make the story interesting and ties a lot of aspects of the story of the previous games. Another thing to point out is that this game suffers from too much story exposition. At far too many points in the game, you will have to read through extended segments of character dialogue explaining every single detail of the story. I feel like the way the mystery unravels, the dialogue and the story progression should have been reworked so that it didn't rely so heavily on exposition. This game does not feature voice acting except in the opening of the game and some sound effects of the characters. Red Colony 2 had voice acting in Japanese, which was a nice touch, and I feel Red Colony 3 took a step backwards in that regard. Regarding the visuals of the game features hand-drawn character models and environment, with colorful and futuristic aesthetics. Women have the distinct look of previous Red Colony games, where they are drawn with very voluptuous features and varied styles of hair. This time around, the character models look more polished than in previous games. Some characters have more detail and are more visually interesting than characters from previous entries of the franchise. Other visual details from previous games come back, like for example, when you attack enemies, their limbs start to tear off. And in the same way, if your character takes damage, she starts to lose pieces of her clothes. Regarding the performance of the game ran stable for the most part. However, there were a lot of bugs and there was one section of the game where the frame rate got wonky. Among the bugs I found were the following. Sometimes if you went back to the main title screen and tried to load the game again, the environment would not load and everything would be black. Another time, the key card that you get in the game to open doors would not work, and the game would tell you that you needed the key card even though you already had it. Some cutscenes or character interactions would repeat itself if you left and returned to an area. And finally, at one time the game completely froze. In any case, these bugs could be worked around if you closed the application and opened it back up. These are bugs that will probably get fixed with updates. In the music department, the game relies completely on environmental sound effects to generate atmosphere and tension. You only hear music in some very limited sections of the game and the tracks are very brief. The environmental sounds and gameplay set pieces that the game puts you in fail to create tension most of the time. Only a few very brief times there was actual tension. So let's talk about the gameplay in Red Colony 3. Just like previous entries, Red Colony 3 is a survival horror 2D side-scrolling indie game, meaning that you have limited resources for defending yourself, you move on a 2D plane, and you will have to find key items and solve puzzles to progress through the game. Your character can walk, run, and crouch. The game features 3 types of guns to defend yourself with, and some limited amount of ammo scattered throughout the game. You can now aim with precision using the right stick. You use USB sticks to save the game, and you have a limited amount that you find throughout the game. In contrast with previous entries, there are no melee weapons. Red Colony 3 integrates 4 new mechanics. First of all, you can now turn on and off the lights of certain rooms, and you can use this to your advantage to sneak through the room without enemies detecting you. Secondly, some enemy types require you to shoot specific parts of the body to kill them, and you can now aim at specific points in regular enemies to do more damage. Third, there are pipes in certain rooms that you can shoot to briefly stun enemies and run past them. And fourth, now there are 2 types of raptors, one that you can kill and others that you still need to hide from. Another addition is the outfit system. Throughout the game you find different outfits, just like in previous games, but this time around each outfit has its own HP. There are no healing items in the game, so in that sense, the outfits are your HP tanks, and once you take too much damage with one, you can change to another. However, once you lose the HP on that outfit, you can't heal it. The game features a good variety of enemy types, from robot raptors to regular zombies, robotic strong zombies, among others. Some of these enemies require that you hide from them, others need to be shot in specific places, and others can be faced normally. This gives the enemy encounter a variety that previous entries in the franchise were lacking. The game features some basic puzzles that are simple to solve in order to get optional items or progress through the story, and the game lasts around 2 to 3 hours depending on how fast you play through it. So let's talk about the weak points and the strong points of this game. I'm gonna start off with the weak points. First of all, the lack of music. The game relies on ambient sound effects to create its atmosphere, but this time around it doesn't work as well as in Red Colony 2. The game needed music to create atmosphere. Secondly, the setting and level design. Titan is not as interesting as Red Colony, and especially not as interesting as the Blue Colony. There were areas that looked too much like areas in previous games, and there was less of a focus on exploration and interconnectedness of the world. This resulted in a more linear experience compared to Red Colony 2. And third but not least, the story and dialogue is a mixed bag. Like I said before, the beginning sections of the story are not very interesting and are kind of boring at times. The dialogue is cheesy and feels like you're playing a soap opera. It is only near the end of the game that there are a few twists that make the story more interesting. So what are the strong points of this game? First of all, character models. The character models in Red Colony 3 are more polished, have more detail, and are more interesting than in previous entries. Secondly, enemy variety. Red Colony 3 features more enemy types than any other game in the franchise, and it gives a lot of variety to the gameplay. And speaking of gameplay, the last and most important strong point of this game is its gameplay. The gameplay mechanics added to this game really elevated the gameplay to a more complete and diverse experience that make it much more entertaining and engaging compared to previous entries. In conclusion, despite having on paper a more intriguing premise and setting than the last 2 games, Red Colony 3 fails to take advantage of that. The beginning parts of the story dilutes itself to a cheesy soap opera with a slow and boring dialogue. As you progress through the game, the story becomes more interesting, but ends up being dragged down by the first half of the game. The characters of this game are not as varied and interesting as in Red Colony 2, and the setting feels like areas of previous entries. The level design lacks the interconnectedness and openness that Red Colony 2 offered. However, where Red Colony 3 shines is in the array of new gameplay mechanics, accompanied by more polished and good-looking character models and enemy variety that make the game a much more solid and entertaining experience. It is these elements that make the game as good as previous entries, despite it not being able to surpass Red Colony 2 in the level design, setting, and characters. For this reason, I recommend Red Colony 3. So that's gonna be it for my non-spoiler review. Link to the game's page will be in the description. I hope you guys enjoyed this, and I will see you guys next time. Bye! Hi everyone, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel to keep up to date with our content.